Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Purpose Matrix. I'm really excited today to share kind of what the Purpose Matrix is, my story, how the Purpose Matrix evolved, how I have applied it in my life, and the impact it's had on me. Yeah, I'm just really excited and humbled to have this opportunity to do that. I also want to say before I get into that, we have a great amount of listeners. We've been able to grow our impact. Hopefully, if you're listening, you've listened to our Moeller Real Estate and Business podcast. And I just want to say thank you for listening in. Hopefully you've been able to apply some things in your life. And, congratulations for being committed to getting better, to growing yourself and, working on yourself and doing the important work that it takes to grow in different areas of life. Really, the transition is not about a change of the discussions we're having in a significant way. It's more about aligning the branding and what we like to talk about most, what we're most passionate about together, right? So we love, if you've listened in, you've heard us talk about purpose, mindset, extreme ownership. You've heard us talk about faith, family, fitness, and certainly plenty of business, real estate, investing, leadership, extreme ownership, all kinds of different topics. So we just felt like it was more appropriate. And the story behind the Purpose Matrix is pretty neat in how it's evolved and how I've tried to use it myself to get better and grow in different areas of life. So this isn't a new start or starting over. It's kind of a minor change in a direction because we think what we're doing here can be really impactful, and we just want to have an impact and help you and support you in your journey. So I want to start by telling my story a little bit more and how this evolved. I'm going to go back to January 2nd, 2011. I was about 30 years old or so, not quite, but January 2nd was always a big day because you're coming off of 2 weeks. I didn't work for 2 weeks. Most years we had a shutdown at where I work. A lot of holiday parties, a lot of overeating and eating, a lot of probably over drinking and over drinking, and kind of just not a lot of energy in the first place on January 2nd. Probably coming off some football games and bowl games that we were watching. And again, who knows what we were doing those days. But, I wasn't high energy January 2nd. In addition, I always had these thoughts of, am I on the right path? Am I doing the right thing? And I had those thoughts around my career, business, my faith, my relationships, and my health. And I certainly didn't have all those things figured out. So, every year, January 2nd it was tough. It was drag myself out of bed, hit snooze a couple times, and kind of a grind, especially those first couple of days of the year. As I was thinking about the year, what I wanted to do, what did I wanted to get done, who was I becoming, things like that. So I'll start with talking about that time and really from a career and professional perspective. And I'll even go back to what led to that in my childhood. So when I was younger, I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family. My mom grew up on a dairy farm, so a family of entrepreneurs there, right? Agriculture industry. And then my grandpa on my dad's side started a trucking business, like milk truck hauling in the mid 70s. Dad started doing that with him. But tragically, my grandpa died at a very young age, and my dad and brothers decided to pull the business together to incorporate it. And that was, 40 plus years ago. And my point of that is entrepreneurship was in the house and talked about all the time. My mom and my dad both understood it and how it worked. Early on, my dad's office was in our living room. I was one of 7. So can you imagine trying to take a business phone call with 7 kids running around, loud chaos, yelling, screaming, fighting, who knows what. But I know that it was ingrained in me. I don't remember all the discussions when I was really, really young while the office was still at home. I just know that I heard them, and my older siblings have told me that, my parents talked about business. They tried to screen it, but it still came up, and I heard about it. So it was ingrained in me at a young age, and it just always has been a part of me. But that being said, growing up in entrepreneurship, my parents kind of pointed me in a direction of the safe route, the American dream, the corporate route, get a good job, make a good living, make a good salary. And that's the direction I went. And I, early on in my career, that's where I was going, but entrepreneurship was always in my blood, and I was always looking for other things. Early on, I had different side hustles. I did get into self-development early, which was really game-changing for me and has hopefully compounded my growth and learning and education over time. But they guided me to that. And I think it's because they only saw the entrepreneurship. They didn't see they saw the good and the bad of entrepreneurship, but they didn't see the good and the bad of corporate career. And I'm not saying, what's right for you or what's wrong for you. They didn't have that perspective, and I was able to get a little bit of both. So I was always just searching for a little bit more. I learned so much in my corporate career, and I'm really thankful and appreciative to all the people that had a great impact on me, all the different leaders and people that I worked for or worked for me, my peers, whoever it was. A lot of great people, a lot of leadership in business and finance and operations and sales and marketing lessons that I learned from that, and I'm very, very appreciative of. And I tried to have an impact in my corporate career, developing leaders. We had leadership book discussions and things like that. And I was having the impact I thought I could, but it wasn't in alignment with what I really thought I should be doing. I was helping people become better leaders to be in a bigger corporate role when that's not really what I wanted or was aspiring to be. Entrepreneurship was in my blood. So over that course of time, I was gaining more clarity and maybe uncertainty that this isn't what I wanted to do. And I started doing different things. And that's where real estate came into play shortly thereafter. But anyway, if I go back to January 2nd, 2011, I talked a lot about kind of where things were professionally for me. I'll talk about my health. I remember specifically, maybe a year after that, but in that time frame, seeing a picture with my young daughter at the time, and this reflects how my health on January 2nd that year too. But I was 45, 50 pounds more than I am now, just overweight. But the bigger thing is I didn't have energy levels like I do now, several years later. It wasn't a priority for me. Or I was not clear on what my health purpose was. And I'll get into this with the purpose matrix, but my health purpose wasn't in alignment with my bigger purposes. A lot of times, people say, well, health is your first priority because if you don't have that, you don't have anything. And there's some truth to that for sure. But I think it's not which one's more important. It's, are they in alignment with each other? And we'll talk about that more here in a little bit. My relationships, no children at the time, but my wife, we had a good relationship. We had a good marriage at the time for sure. But I wasn't being overly intentional about making that better and growing that like I am now. So there was definitely room for growth. And then my faith, I would say I was kind of the cradle Catholic, went to church on Sundays most of the time. But if I drank too much or, had other things going on, it wasn't the top priority. I didn't really focus on it. And then outside of church, definitely didn't have a strong spiritual life like I do now, which and it is still growing. And I got some catching up to do, but I'm really learning and growing in that area. And I'm very, very excited about that. So really the summary of that time frame for me was I lacked clarity. I wasn't real sure of what my identity was, and I was living with uncertainty. I really started searching for clarity at that time, but I wasn't clear at that time what I wanted to do. I was learning, I was growing, I was reading business books, leadership books, mindset books started to come into play more during this time. And over the course of the next several years, I just started to grow and I started to apply different elements of what I'm now calling the purpose matrix to my life to kind of grow over that time period. I always thought about, do I write a book someday? Do I start a podcast? For a long time, ego is an interesting thing. And I think ego it held me back because there was a long time where I thought, what are people going to think of me if I do this? Just a lot of negative thoughts and really thinking about things from a place of fear and what will people think. And I think that a lot of times that's ego for us. And I think that was the case for me. I also had limiting beliefs. Do I belong in that situation? Do I have the authority or the knowledge or the success or whatever it is to be able to do that? Am I prepared for that? And I still have those thoughts today. Even doing a solo episode like this, my team will laugh because they know that this isn't an easy thing. I like to be in the other chair. I like to be the one sitting there asking the questions and guiding and facilitating the discussion versus the one doing all the talking. So maybe that's hard for you to believe. Maybe it's not, but I know my team recognizes it, and I'm still learning and growing in many different areas. So this is, the last couple of years is really when this purpose matrix concept started coming together. I started reading more, networking events, associations, the podcast interviews, all kind of came to this and then supported this concept as it evolved. The first thing that came about was what I'll talk about is the 5 key factors to success. And if you listen to the Moeller Real Estate and Business podcast at the very end, after the interview's over, I say these 5 areas of success. So I'm going to play that now for you to hear it. I encourage you to be purposeful in all areas of life, educate yourself, network with others that have been successful, take action, and lead. So if you heard that, you heard really my 5 key areas of success. Now, what I've done with the Purpose Matrix is this acronym came to me, the acronym P.E.A.C.E. I've just reworded those things to make it sticky, to make it memorable for myself and for others. And the acronym P.E.A.C.E. stands for purpose, education, association, courage, and example. So I really sincerely think these are the keys to success. This just isn't a forced or made up acronym. I really feel sincere about that. And you can hear that from our prior podcast and how it's the same words, just said a little bit differently. So that started to come together. I was like, okay, I can apply these, the P.E.A.C.E. acronym to business and be successful. Then I was like, well, I think I can apply this to other areas of life. I can apply this to my health. So if I'm clear on my purpose, if I educate myself, if I associate with others that are healthy, if I have the courage to act, to work out, to say no to, the things that make me unhealthy, or the foods that say yes to the foods that do make me healthy. If I act courageously, and then be an example to others too, is an opportunity in health. So if I apply it there, it works. Or if I apply it in my relationship, it works. Or if I apply it in faith, it also works. So I started applying the purpose, the P.E.A.C.E. acronym to different areas of life. And I was excited about it. I was like, okay, this is starting to come together. Then I said, well, what if I connect these somehow? So when I started to do this, I said, well, what if I put this in a matrix? So this is where the matrix came about. And it's literally a matrix. So matrix kind of means 2 things. First, it means it's a matrix. So it can be a 4x5 matrix. The left side is the P.E.A.C.E. acronym. Again, purpose, education, association, courage, and example. That's the rows. And then on the top in the columns are the areas of life. So that could be like the 4 F's, for example: faith, family, finance, fitness, or whatever those areas of life are for you would be how many columns you have. And that's the matrix, the table of that you would fill out. So, and I'll come back to that. So that's the matrix. The other thing is, you've heard about the movie The Matrix maybe, but we're living in the matrix. But we own the matrix. We control the matrix. And I'll talk about that more a little bit later too. So this matrix idea started coming about. Well, then I'm like, well, what if we prioritize these areas of life? So what if we align these? So that's where, okay, from left to right, put the most important areas of life on the left in the far left column. And then the second, so let's say it's faith. And then the second one is family. Is my faith purpose aligned? Is my family purpose aligned with my faith purpose? Okay, so then let's say next is finance. Is my finance purpose support my family and my faith purpose? And let's say it's fitness. Does my fitness purpose support my family, my finances, my faith? Are they in support of each other, or are they working against each other? And I think the word alignment is important, not balance, because balance suggests give and take. Alignment suggests in support of each other. You've probably heard me talk about like health is an easy example. If I say my health is just to look good and it doesn't really support other things, that's fairly empty. If I say my health is to have energy for my kids and my grandkids and to live my purpose, that supports my faith purpose, my family purpose, right? And my financial or meaningful work purpose. So because of that, then my health, I will put a high priority on that because it supports my bigger purpose. So then it starts to come together. Okay, if we align different areas of life together, we can really live better and live more in alignment with our purpose in every area of life. It makes our conviction and our courage to do those things even stronger. Now I want to go back to a story. This is where we're going to get a little bit deeper, guys. Okay, guys and girls. So I was at a conference 3 years ago, and the facilitator asked a question real quick in a couple words: what is your identity? And it's a business conference, so I write down, I got this. I can figure this out. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a real estate investor. I'm a business owner or a business leader or whatever. I wrote those things down. And he's like, okay, what do you guys all have to say? And people started saying some of those things. And someone's like, I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm like, oh, shoot, I missed this one. They're like, I'm a child of God. I'm a man of faith. I'm like, boy, talk about missing it. Like, what's my true identity? And I really started thinking about that more. Fortunately, I had an electronic notebook. I erased all of that and I rewrote it in the order that I was, okay, now I get it. That was a trick question, but it made me think, like, what is my identity? And that was a couple of years ago. But as this purpose matrix concept came about, it really is about building out what your identity is, what you want it to be, who you want to be, and then fill out the matrix to support that and go do it. And you got to do it. So there started to become clarity on what my identity wanted to be, who I wanted to be at this time. And then I started thinking about, okay, well, how does this, even if you step back more, how does this really fit in? We have to take ownership of the matrix. We have to take ownership of our life. Really impactful group, Focus 3, Tim and Brian Kite. I had them both on the Mueller Real Estate and Business podcast. Very, very impactful. And they have this equation called the R factor: events plus response equals outcome. Very, very impactful on me. You can apply that in the smallest situations and largest situations. And then I was like, well, how does this, are these connected anyway? And the way I say it for the purpose matrix is there's worldly things that happen to us. We can't control those. They just happen to us. We control who we are and what we do. And we're going to design that with the purpose matrix because that's what we control. And then from that, we will get worldly outcomes and worldly results. We greatly influence the outcomes and the results we get, but we have to disconnect and let go of those and focus just on the matrix, just on what we do, just on who we are. If we do that, the outcomes will work out over time. Some will be good, some will be bad. We have to disconnect and let those go. Now, those can be feedback and we can adapt and adjust what we do, but we can't get caught up in what happens to us and we can't get caught up in the results we get. We just have to keep focusing on being who we want to be and doing what we need to do. And if we do that, the best outcomes possible will come out of that for us. So really, we just have to own the matrix. Then I was like, okay, so this is starting to come together. So then I was like, well, how am I doing? So I filled out the matrix for myself. How am I doing? And some of this ties to, several years ago, but this was in the last year or two. How am I doing here? When I started to fill it out, okay, am I clear on my purpose? Okay, yeah, pretty close. Education, how am I doing? Oh, I'm not really educating myself on my faith very, very much. I'm not making that as much of a priority. I'm really educating myself and have the last several years on leadership, on business, on finance, but not on faith, maybe not on family and relationships. Okay, that's not good. If I say those are my priorities, but I'm not doing that, am I really living in alignment with who I want to be? Associations in my network. Okay, I have friends, mastermind groups focused on business a lot, but other things too. But I don't have a group around faith. I just started one last year. I've joined one. It's been incredibly impactful for me. We meet weekly. It's just been game changing, which also built the conviction for the purpose matrix and association being an important part of it. And I'll talk in later episodes about the different areas of the different keys to success and why they're important. But I started measuring myself and I made this a scorecard. You can go as far as you want this. You can make this green, yellow, red. We might even create this. And there were some red items on the far left, my most important priority being my faith or my family. There was squares, if you will, in the matrix that were red. My score was low. So I started changing those things and I started prioritizing those. And now the books I read are more focused on the most important areas of life and less on, business and leadership and other stuff. I still read that stuff, but I focus on the highest and most important things. So I started using this to assess myself. And I said, okay, well, if I'm not doing that, now let's clear the slate. After reflect on how we've done, let's change this to what are we going to do? So on a quarterly basis, I go in and I fill out the matrix. So I fill out, what is my purpose? Okay, it hasn't changed. I'm pretty clear on that. Or maybe I fine-tuned it. Maybe I tweaked it. What am I going to do to educate myself this quarter in each of those areas of life? Who am I going to associate with that is going to make me better in each of those areas of life? What courageous things do I need to do? this quarter to grow here? How do I need to be an example? How do I need to lead in the different areas of life? And now I have a planning tool. So that's also a framework and a planning tool, which is the most powerful. So now I have a planning tool to help me become who I want to be. That's the purpose matrix. That's what it is. So I'm super excited about that. I'm super excited about the purpose matrix. Like the summary of the purpose matrix is, it applies the key areas of success that I've been talking about on the prior podcast. Now we'll keep talking about, our guests will keep talking about, the books we read. We'll talk about these. It provides clarity on who you are and what your identity is. And it aligns your areas of life with each other. It clarifies what you own with the equation and what you don't own. Worldly events, worldly results versus what you do, who you are, your matrix, you own that. It's a scorecard for how you're doing. It's a framework for setting goals, whether you do that quarterly, yearly, monthly, right? You can plug this in and plan around it. And it's been game changing for me. It really has been. I had grown, I'd been thinking about different of these concepts over time, but it's just given me clarity of what I need to focus on now. And fast forward today, several years ago, January 2nd was a grind. Now I wake up, the holidays are better. I'm enjoying the time with the family. I'm more disciplined on diet. I'm more disciplined on alcohol, things like that. And I'm clear on my purpose for my faith, my family, my health, my relationships, my meaningful work. I'm able to let go. If you think about the equation, I'm really able to let go of what happens to me. I don't get caught up in what happens near as much. And I'm, for the most part, able to let go of my results and focus on what I'm doing. I'm not perfect. I am a work in process. I'm using this framework to keep growing and getting better. And I'm really excited about leveraging this for the next 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years, if I'm blessed to live that long, and just keep growing, using the keys to success in every area of life. So I also want to say that no matter where you are in your journey, don't get caught up in not having clarity, not being clear on your purpose in different areas of life, but start to fill it out. It's an iterative process, right? Quarter one now doesn't, quarter one next year, you're going to grow a lot. You're going to get more clarity. You're going to be reading different books. You're going to have different associations. You're going to grow. So start to fill it out and start to move in that direction. So we're excited about the podcast and the show. We're going to be on podcasts. We're going to be on YouTube. You're going to see this on social media. We're going to talk about this more and more. But we're just really excited about it. We're really blessed to have the opportunity to do this. We're thankful for our listeners engaging. Our guests are going to come on. They're going to talk about their story, what their keys to success are. But you've heard a lot of these, and a lot of them fit into this framework for sure. I think they're the most important ones. So we're just excited about continuing this journey with you. We're thankful for you being on the journey with us. We're going to have another introductory episode or two where we kind of explain this and the different elements of it. So I just appreciate all of our listeners hanging out with me today, listening in, following my journey and what we're doing. And I'm hopeful you're following because we're having an impact on you and helping you in different ways. And sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, we're just so appreciative of everything that you're doing to support us, whatever that means. Keep searching, keep learning, keep growing, apply this framework, keep listening, and you'll be on the right path to grow. Again, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I look forward to being on this journey with you. Thank you.